So the sovereign practice, so the idea of actualizing, I keep saying the idea, which is really not the best word to use here, the work, the invitation of actualizing our sovereignty. So sovereignty isn't something that we kind of come out the womb with. It very much is something that we need to choose into, maturing, actualizing. And it's really something we have to keep choosing as well, is not a one and done for sure. And yet it's required really in order to journey into the other two strands. So the other two strands, again, being the reclamation of our wildness and the awakening of our soul that we'll come to in a moment. Sovereignty often is absolutely required to choose what is needed for those other two. And so it is the most practical and empowering thing we can possibly do because of what it allows us to move into that otherwise wouldn't be the case. So these are the sovereign practices. The first one is it's if I could choose one practice that everyone here were going to do, it would be this one. So ask your inner child what they wish for Christmas. What do they wish for Christmas this year? And allow them to tell you also, what is it that they fear? What do they crave? What do they long for? What would allow them to feel safe and welcomed? And this again could be a daily practice that you do every morning to really keep your inner child present for you each day during this time of year. And I would say, ironically, even though we often say Christmas is for children, it's so often the time that actual children are most controlled and pressurized and unseen. At this time of year, I often have coming up in Facebook memories, memories and articles and things like that I've shared in years past when my children were small. And they were experiencing that kind of cliche of going out into the mainstream world. And people would say to them things like, have you been good this year? So that Santa will visit. And my daughter in particular is just she's got a particular way of being. She's not what I'm about to say might sound very feisty, and she isn't feisty in the way it sounds. She's actually got this very like ray of sunshine, kind of irrepressible spirit. And so the way that I'm going to reply to this doesn't do her justice, but she would reply in this just gorgeous way of kind of like, we don't have to be good or bad. Father Christmas loves us and will come to us anyway. She would say things like that. And then one particularly memorable year, we'd taken them to go and see a Father Christmas at a garden centre kind of, grotto type thing. And they were there sitting next to the Father Christmas, and the Father Christmas went something like, ho, ho, ho. Have you... I wasn't expecting to say ho, ho. You're getting it all on this episode, even Father Christmas impressions. So, ho, 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 have you been good, little boy and girl? And my daughter said something like, no, that's just something that parents say to make their children behave. We don't believe in that in our house. Meanwhile, my son, who's just a little bit older, was doing those kind of like throat cutting movements, like stop. It absolutely cracked me up. I was so proud in that moment, like, yes, they know the truth. And why was I telling that story? Oh, of course, yes. So, of course, it's this time of year, ironically, that we say it's for children, that I would say it's least for what children really are, which is this like, beautiful expression of all that's good. And instead of allowing that, we try and create even more controlling and clamping down a behavior than we do often the rest of the year. The same goes for our own inner children, that it's when they're most neglected, most abandoned, most not listened to, most squished down. So let this be the Christmas where that changes. The next sovereign practice before any family gathering, take a moment before the family descend, or before they descend, from the various places in the household, if you've got household guests, and stand or sit with both feet on the ground and breathe into your belly. And imagine yourself sitting on this throne of your life, rooted to the earth, crown on your head, opening to spirit, allowing that to flow through you. Allow it to remind you of that feeling of being centered and grounded, guided, and come back to that. When those times where you start to feel pulled out of center, when those old patterns start to catalyze in you over the Christmas dinner table or wherever they do, just take a moment to come back into that embodied memory of what sovereignty feels like. I'm going through these quite quickly now, I appreciate, because this has ended up being quite a long episode. But hopefully, even if you do that once, you'll start to see what I mean. You can build on that. Okay, last sovereign practice. And this is a kind of more of a practice in the moment, what we might call kind of like that sort of daily training. So if you're in a room where it's starting to get tense, difficult, painful, give yourself permission to leave the room. Really simple, but sometimes really hard to choose. Give yourself a moment to leave the room. Again, it can just be very brief. Sometimes it can be just like that. Knowing that we've got the permission actually means we don't need to do it. Or it can be just making an excuse to use the loo, whatever. For me, my dogs need to be let out 8 million times a day. So that's always always a good way if someone does need a moment to themselves. And you can also obviously step out into the garden at the same time then. Just even a moment of allowing yourself to choose to come back to yourself, ground yourself, uh, touch in with your inner child can make all the difference. And it's a sovereign choice to know that you can choose that.